This is Chris Cook from 3M Commercial Graphics. Today I'd actually like to talk about using knifeless tape. Quite a popular product, see a lot of people using it on car wraps, but I've also seen and heard a few comments about people perhaps not being happy with the results they've been getting from it. Now, like any product, if you use it correctly, it'll tend to work well, but if you're not using it correctly, then you're not going to get the best possible result from it. So what I'd like to do today is just go through a couple of simple tips and techniques to help you get the best possible results when you are using the knifeless tape. Yeah, so if you want to get the best result, you need to use the product correctly. Now, I've set this particular panel up, actually not applied correctly and not going to use it correctly, just to show you what can happen if you don't follow the instructions. Okay, so as I pull the filament, you can see that we're not getting a very nice edge there at all. So if I remove that film now, you can see that rather than getting a nice, clean, smooth edge, we've got jagged, we've got tears, the film stretch, and it's horrible. But that was because I haven't used the knifeless tape correctly. I haven't followed the instructions, and that's the kind of result that we'll end up with. So what I'll do now is actually, we'll do it the correct way, and we'll see the very clear difference that we can actually get a very nice, smooth, clean edge. Okay, now the first tip is that when we are laying the knifeless tape onto our surface, onto the vehicle's paint, we want to make sure that we're laying it straight, and in particular, as we turn any corners, that we're not pulling or putting tension on the tape, because if we do that, we'll actually tend to pull the filament out from under the tape, and we'll end up not getting a nice, smooth, clean edge. Okay, so as we're applying the tape, particularly as we get to a corner, as you work around the corner, make sure that you're not pulling too hard on the tape, because if we put too much tension on it, as we go around the corner, you can see that the filament will actually tend to pull out from under the tape, and that's not going to give us a clean edge. Okay, so the correct way to do the corner is, as we go working around the corner, not too much tension on the tape, because we want the tape to lay down nice and smoothly with a filament running right down the centre. So you can see here that the filament has stayed right through the centre of the tape. And once you have applied it, go back over with your finger, pressing down firmly to make sure that the tape has adhered well to the surface. Okay, so we've applied our tape. We're now going to lay our film over the tape. And we're going to squeegee that down. Now, our next important tip is that we actually need to ensure that we squeegee the film down really firmly right up to the edge of the tape. We want to make sure that that film is really well adhered right up to the edge of the knifeless tape, so that when we do pull the filament, it's got something to pull against, and the film won't lift off the surface and cause a jagged edge. So we're going to get our squeegee, and we're going to make sure that we work the film down right up to the edge of the knifeless tape. So we're just going to squeegee the film right up to the tape. You can see that that's giving us a very nicely defined edge of the tape. There's something to pull against. We're now going to start to actually pull the filament out to create our edge. It is important that we use the correct technique for this. We want to maintain an angle of about 30 to 45 degrees between the surface and the filament. So that angle in there, about 30 to 45 degrees. Don't pull straight up like that, because if you do, what you'll tend to find it happen is see how the film is just pulling up off the surface, and that's going to give us a very, very ugly looking cut. So we want to pull back at 30 to 45 degrees from the surface. We also want to pull the filament so that it's directly in line with the tape itself. Don't pull out at an angle like that. We want to always be pulling directly in line with the underlying tape, and try to do it in one nice, smooth, continuous motion. And that's going to help give us the cleanest, smoothest cut. Right, so now we can actually remove the excess film. So we'll pull that away. Now we can remove the remainder of the tape. We're going to pull it out, making sure that you get both halves of the tape, because it will have split into two once you've pulled the filament. But you can pull them both at once, but just make sure that all of the tape does come out and you don't leave any remnants stuck underneath the stuck underneath the film. Okay, and next tip is once we've done that, you can sometimes see that as you've pulled the filament, it does put a little bit of stretch in the film. It does sort of like tend to make that edge a little bit wavy. What we can do is actually now use a heat gun. If we apply a little bit of heat to that edge before we squeegee it down, the heat will actually cause the film to shrink back to its original shape and it will lay down nice and flat. So we'll just get our heat gun and I'm just going to heat along that edge. I like to actually heat with the air going off the edge rather than into the edge. If I heat in that direction, it tends to lift the film up and make it flap around a little bit. So I'm going to work from the film off the edge and just quickly that little bit of heat treatment around the edge, and we can see it actually shrinking out that little bit of stretch in the edge. Now once I've done that, just let the film cool down for a second so that it's not too soft. I can now get my squeegee and go around and squeegee that edge down. And you can see that by following that process, we've now got a really nice, smooth, clean cut even around our radius corner there. So, knifeless tape can work very, very well, but like most things, you need to follow the instructions. So, some of the key points are, make sure that you're not stretching the tape as you work it around the corner. Squeegee the film down very firmly up to the tape. When you're pulling the filament, pull it at that 30 to 45 degree angle, directly back on itself and in a nice smooth continuous fluid motion. And don't forget about using the heat gun on that edge before you squeegee it down, just to let the film shrink back to its original nice flat smooth state. By doing those things, you should get the nicest possible edge.